Is it actually possible to live off dividends? How much dividend would you need to make to rely on it fully as your main source of income? Well, if you have asked all those questions or you're still asking the questions, I have all the answers for you right here. In this video, I'll be talking about how you can live off dividends, how much money you will need to invest, and how fast you can make this happen with specific strategies to adopt. So if you don't want to miss any of these, ensure to watch till the end. Hi everyone, my name is Ebuka and this is the Finance Wiz channel. I'm a finance expert with several years of experience working in the finance space. So this channel is dedicated to simplifying personal finance topics around income generation, investments, debt management, savings, and providing you valuable tips to help you through your journey to financial independence. So if you actually find all this content very valuable to you, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Also, I would encourage you to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my content subsequently. So before I get into the details of how you can plan out your stock investment to generate passive income or dividends into the long term so that it can sustain you, I want to explain a few concepts which you need to understand before you embark on this journey. The first concept I would like to explain is what I call dividends. Now, for those that don't understand what dividends are, it's simply a portion of the company's profit which is paid out to shareholders. Now, shareholders on the other hand are individuals or organizations that have purchased a portion of a business through shareholdings or stock holdings. So you can actually call them part owners of the business. Now, to simplify the concept of dividend, you can simply call it a returns on stock investments. Now, another concept you need to understand is that the amount that needs to be distributed as dividend is usually determined by the company's board of directors. Now, you also have to understand that dividends can be paid at different frequencies determined by the organization. It could be quarterly, it could be annually, it could be biannually, it could even be biennially, and even sometimes at periodic instances. So dividends are most times paid through cash or reinvestment in stocks. If you're interested in dividend stocks, there are other concepts which you need to understand. I'll just talk about two of them only. The first is what I call announcement date. Now, announcement date is the date that the company announces the dividend to be paid. The other concept is what I call ex-dividend date. Now, ex-dividend date is the date on or after which, if you purchase that stock, you will not qualify to get the dividend that was being announced at that point. So if you're curious about how dividend is being calculated, dividends are commonly being measured through different parameters such as dividend yield, price earning ratio, and dividends per share. Now, dividend yield is simply calculated by dividing your annual dividends per share by the current share price and is usually expressed in percentages. Price earning ratio, on the other hand, is determined by dividing the share price by the earnings per share. If you need more details about dividend and how it works, please refer to the video I've tagged up here. So now you clearly understand the concept of dividends and dividend paying stocks. Now I'm just going to take you quickly through the advantages and disadvantages of going for dividend paying stocks. So first, let's talk about the advantages of dividend paying stock or relying on dividend as a source of income. The first reason is that dividend paying stocks serve as a source of passive income because you actually don't need to do anything to generate income from this source. Number two is that it offers dual benefits to investors. Now, how do I mean? It provides an opportunity for you to partake in the profit of the business, of which I earlier mentioned that dividend is a portion of the profit of the business. The other benefit to it is that it also offers a stock appreciation opportunity for the investor. That's to say, if you own that stock for a couple of years, you can actually gain a lot of appreciation on the stock price in the long term. So the third good advantage of dividend paying stock is that when you purchase dividend paying stock, they give you an opportunity to reinvest your dividends paid for the period of time. For instance, if the organization decides to pay you dividend and you choose not to collect the dividend, you can always reach out to your financial institutions to do the investment. This can also help grow your stock holding without putting any extra cash into the purchase of that stock. So the first is that dividend payment is actually not guaranteed. Like, it's at the discretion of the business to pay this dividend or not. Now, that's why I typically advise a lot of people that I speak to or consult with to ensure that if you want to consider dividend paying stock in the longest term, go for stocks that consistently pay dividend over a long period of time. In other words, a long dividend payment streak. So in a previous video, I talked about dividend kings, which are simply stocks that have paid dividends over a 50-year period. period, and I've tagged them here so you can make reference to it if you want to watch it. Also, dividend aristocrats are those that have paid dividends over a 25-year period consistently. The second downside to dividend paying stocks is that these stocks can actually be affected by interest rate fluctuations or changes. Also, there's a tax component of your dividends which you need to take into consideration when realized or cashed out. The third downside to dividend paying stock is that extremely high dividend yield stocks could actually be indicators of an underperforming business or underperforming stock. So you need to take that into consideration whenever you're purchasing dividend paying stocks. Something to keep at the back of your mind is that most times when a company's stock price is dropping, there's a high likelihood that the dividend yield will continue to grow irrespective of the dropping stock price. So you need to keep that in mind when you're looking at high paying dividend yields. Now let's get into the details of how you can determine how much you would need to invest to live off dividends alone. Now, number one step you need to do is you need to first clearly establish your goals. What are you trying to achieve? How much are you trying to achieve? And how can you work back to determine the amount of investment and the number of stocks you need to buy? So in order to effectively do that, you need to determine what your annual expenditure is, work it back to monthly expenditure. The second thing you need to also establish is your emergency fund. I like to put an emergency fund percentage as a buffer in case of miscellaneous activities or uncertainties or unplanned activities that come about during the course of the month. Now let's take a very simple instance or example. Assume an individual would incur about 60,000 for the whole year for annual expenses, and then the emergency fund for the year is about $5,000, just an example, making 65,000 for the whole year. Now you need to split this amount into a monthly expenses, so $65,000 divided by 12, which brings it to about $5,420 on a monthly basis. So we're now clear on what our goal or target expenditure level is. The next step, which is my number 2, is to determine what kind of stock you would want to buy as an individual. Now, there's so many dividend paying stock out there which can be quite confusing, and I do a number of videos around dividend stocks to buy which are reasonable in terms of the performance of the business. Now, like I earlier said, before you buy your dividend or purchase your dividend paying stock, you need to consider things like the dividend paying streak, which is simply how long the stock has paid dividend over a period of time. The consistency is super important for you. You want to consider the profitability of the business, the earnings growth of the business to determine if it's worth investing in. You also want to consider the industry which the business is operating in. Is it an industry that has a lot of potentials? Are the competitors within that industry also doing amazing well? Or is there a possibility of growth or transitioning into a better performance level? You also want to consider the indicators I also earlier mentioned, such as the stock price. You want to look at the dividend payout ratio, the dividend yield, the dividend per share price earning ratio before you make your choice. Lastly, you want to determine the nature. Is it an ETF you want to go for or an individual stock? Those are things you need to put at the back of your mind before making your selection. The next step is for you to determine how much you need to invest to get your dividend that matches your monthly payment or your annual payment. Of course, we've established $5,420 on a monthly basis and $65,000 on an annual basis. So let's assume we pick two popular ETFs such as the VOO and the VTI. Now, assume the VOO has a dividend yield of 1.37%. Divide that $65,000 by 1.37%. That should give you about $4,744,000 as your initial investment. The same applies to VTI. If you were to use a dividend yield of 1.48%, divide $65,000 by 1.48%, it should give you about $4,391,000 as your investment. Now, this amount looks a bit overwhelming. However, you need to also know that there are many ways to get to this point, such as investing on a consistent basis and ensuring that you reinvest every dividend you get. Also, you can consider a mix of both ETFs and individual stock. You don't necessarily have to invest only in individual stock or a single stock. Now, those facts were given on the basis that you're just starting in the stock market for the first time. However, if you already have stock holdings or you're already invested in certain stocks, the first thing you need to do is list out all your dividend paying stocks, calculate how much dividends you've gotten from these stocks over a period of time, say over a year, then divide that by the market value of your dividend income portfolio. That should help you get your dividend yield. Then, of course, divide your target income by the dividend yield to determine how much you need to invest to get your achieved goal. Of course, you have to deduct the portion that you've already received. The last thing under this which I recommend is that ensure to diversify your portfolio. Usually I recommend about 3 to 5 different stocks if you're looking at ETFs or at least 15 different individual stocks if you want to clearly diversify adequately. So the fourth thing you need to also do is ensure to invest consistently in your stock holding as much as you can. I'd recommend on a monthly basis, set up an auto deduction so the funds keep going into your investment account, and of course keep buying those targeted stock. The fifth step which you need to do is ensure to take advantage of reinvestment programs that are offered by these businesses or this organization. You can reach out to your financial institution and ask them to reinvest all your dividends so that your stock holding can grow even faster without having to put any extra cash into the purchase of these stocks. Dividend reinvestment programs are super effective because it tends to provide a reinvestment of your dividend at a cheaper rate than it will be offered to any other person. Now, I'll be talking about these DRIPs, which is dividend reinvestment programs, in subsequent videos, so ensure to hit the notification bell so you don't miss that. So these are all the steps you need to take if you want to live off dividends today. So if for any reason you have any questions regarding any of the concepts I mentioned, any of the steps I talked about, please feel free to drop your comments and I'm going to address them as quickly as possible. Finally, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course share with a friend if you found this very valuable to you and if you think someone is going to get some good value from watching this video. Alright, thank you. See you at the next video. Bye.